Well, welcome to the show, Cara.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. We already had like a fun kiki before we started rolling. It's going to be even better.
Can't wait.
Even better. Well, I'm super excited to chat with you. You are the president of Starface World.
I am.
An amazing company that has been growing and disrupting and is just so damn cool.
Thank you so much. I love that company. What a special place I found myself at. It's been a blast, honestly.
Yeah. Can we talk about your career trajectory and what brought you to Starface?
Yeah, for sure. Man, I like to say that this is probably what my teenage girl was dreaming up a little bit. Okay, so I was always starting business, and I was the one with the dog walking business and the house cleaning business and all of this random stuff. But I was also in my room trying to be creative and trying to draw and trying to figure this out. And so to marry those two together and run this highly creative business is a dream. And so what happened? How did I get here? A lot of testing and learning, Les, for real. And a lot of refusing to not be happy, not be fulfilled. And so I was searching for this a lot. I was at Google for about 10 years. And, they say the golden handcuffs. It was great. It wasn't I wasn't rocking it there. I wasn't doing anything that incredible. I mean, obviously I had some good stuff going on, but I always knew this isn't it. I'm supposed to be doing something else. And so I just tried and didn't get a lot of stuff, didn't get a lot of interviews, tried for jobs like this a lot. It was just falling flat, frankly. And then I mentioned to a coach that I was working with at the time that I was like, something's not right. And they were like, I think I know some entrepreneurs that are your speed. And it happened to be Brian Bordanik, the founder of Starface. And, quite honestly, he just kind of took a chance on me. And we were like, let's see what this is and let's see if it's a fit. And that was 4 years ago, almost today, to the date.
I love that you talked about having kind of that early entrepreneurial business acumen side and creativity. Because I think sometimes people talk about those two things like they're mutually exclusive. You are either business minded or you are a creative. And if you're creative, you can't, it's going to be hard for you to learn how to run a business. And I think that you clearly marry the two really beautifully and are proof that the two can coexist.
I love that. Thank you. I didn't realize that we do that as people until this job. Yeah, you're either on the business side or you're the creative person. I reject that. I mean, I reject a lot of stuff, but I reject that wholeheartedly. I don't believe anybody's like that. Sure, you probably have some proclivities, but yeah, I do think my sweet spot is right in the middle. And some days I lean one way and some days I lean the other. But it's that marriage of both of those that is so exciting and hard.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Can relate to that a lot. And you mentioned also that you'd been working with a coach for a while. What made you want to start working with a coach? How helpful was that experience?
Oh my God, girl. You know what? I kind of just named this probably in the last year or so, but I'm always searching for a teacher. I'm always kind of looking for help. Teacher in all forms, really. Call it a therapist. I'm evolving into more coaching. I'll have a coach purely for business. I'll have a coach for my mindset. I really believe in that team kind of thing. So, at Google, one of the best things was there was this stipend that you could use for different stuff. And that probably was my first time being ooh, what's this? What would this do? And then probably ever since I have someone in my corner just helping refine or call me on whatever weird train of thought I'm going down for sure.
I admire that because I foolishly am one of those people who tries to do
everything
a lot of things myself.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Not from a lack of wanting teachers, but just having a hard time maybe seeking them out or, maybe it's just not the right time or not quite the right fit.
But yeah, for sure.
I think being in that position to always be willing to be a student is really important.
Yeah. And you know what I think throws some people off is that a lot of it's about fit. And if that first one isn't the right fit, maybe that second one, and then that third one, you're kind of like, okay, no. And like, it just gets exhausting too, because you have to find the person and schedule it. Like, it definitely is a whole thing. But when you find that right fit, like, it's so helpful. And also, like, I believe in seasons and truncated time frames too. So it could be a 6-month, relationship that changes your life, and then you move on. And I feel like I found all of a sudden I'll say to myself, I need like a refreshed person to talk to. And then I'll see someone random comment on LinkedIn, and then I'll reach out. And it might be, it's just like being open. You know how they say, like, once you ask for something, just be open for that thing to appear and then run for it. I feel like that's kind of the theme of how I do a lot of stuff, honestly.
Yeah. Very intuitive. I love that.
Very intuitive.
Yeah. So good.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I would love to get into more of the nitty gritty of like how you work, how you tick, because I'm just very nosy. But I also am so fascinated by women who are in high positions, either in their own companies and other companies, what that looks like, what your habits look like, just how you operate.
Yeah.
I'm just like so fascinated.
I love that stuff too, for sure.
Yeah. And just getting in the nitty gritty, like free reign to be nosy.
I love that.
If you're okay with that.
Absolutely. Can I try something on you that I haven't said that like I'm like is really noodling on me?
Would love.
I'm seeing a lot of high-powered women say that balance doesn't exist. And it's been rubbing me the wrong way for a little while. I know.
That's a perfect place to talk
yes,
about
exactly.
that.
So I'm like, I want to like test this on you and see what you think.
Yeah.
Because I believe so strongly in balance and have forever at any stage of my life. And I'm really not sure that the narrative of like balance throughout the window, like it's a farce. And I deeply understand that, because especially like I do have a big, sexy job, but there are levels to this. And I know that like as you get more and more responsibilities and more things, your time gets crunched. However, for me, I feel like it's an exercise of boundaries and intentions. You know what I mean? And like I have 2 kids. I run this company. I have creative projects. I have relationships that I want to build. And so, what I do kind of try to do, which is more recent, is I kind of like in my mini planners that I don't use, I will just say like, okay, what are the things you care about, for the rest of your life? Relationships, creative projects, health. And then I'm like, okay, how's this week looking on those things? Do I have a phone call with a friend? Check. Relationship is good, and I just check in. So I really, 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 I'm a person who needs that balance. I go to sleep early. I'm a morning person. I will not answer a Slack. Or if I do, I'll stop and be like, oh my gosh, this is stressing me out. Can we talk about it in the morning? Like even saying, can we talk about this tomorrow? Like, I'll be better tomorrow. I'll have smarter ideas. Like, and I just feel like I could talk about this forever. Clearly, I'm word vomiting,
No,
but I feel like there's something about that balance that helps me feel good and probably thrive in a lot of my roles. Yeah.
Yeah, and be able to lead from that perspective too, because if you're setting that precedent, then your team also is able to do the same.
I hope so. Yeah, for sure. I do. I do speak a lot about that a lot to them. And, we're wired differently too. I've never pulled an all-nighter in my life, and I know people who they needed that A. I was happy with that B+, and so it's like we're different. And I'm so grateful that I have people that work for me, work around me that are not that way too. And then that's where it's like a push and a pull for sure. But I genuinely believe that we're better when there's a steady state.
Yeah, I think when people have so much smoke for the term balance, where that comes from is feeling like they need to be 110% in every single area. And yeah, if you look at it that way, like that's not possible for anybody. But if I love the way that you put it with like boundaries and intention. Okay, you're able to set boundaries where you need. You're able to put some energy and intention towards the things, even if like your
Yes.
example for relationships, reached out to a friend, check, doesn't mean that you are like throwing a Pinterest perfect party every time
Yeah.
someone,
Yeah.
sends an email.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You're making me think about like perfection. And I had a friend, one of my closest friends, and her husband called me a perfectionist like maybe 2 years ago. And I was like, what the like, I'm not a perfectionist. And then I was like, oh shit, I am. Like, and so you're right. Like striving towards an unattainable thing, I think we have to stop. And I do think that's the future a little bit. Um, I like to say that, in the realm of parenting, the school realm is not my forte. So I'm never going to be like the best school mom. And I'm not like proud of that, but I am very confident and comfortable in my contribution to my community and my kids, knowing that that's getting a C right there. No question about it. I cannot volunteer. Not that I don't have time. I don't like to. I don't want to take 30 kids to the movies and that sort of thing. And so once I just named that and like released the guilt too and stopped like spinning about it, I was like, okay. So then where will I balance, like, where will I make up for that in my own like standard setting?
So I would love to talk a little bit more about work and your approach for work and being the president of a really fast growing company that has like really big goals, has experienced a lot of tremendous growth over the past few years. How do you keep your nervous system in check with that much responsibility?
The balance we talked about, like the shutting off, I can quickly tell when I'm not saying, acting, feeling like my best, and then I'll shut it down. I'll take a step back, and that really helps me a lot. And I do all the things, I'll do all the like meditating, which for me has helped a lot too. Like COVID really helped solidify that practice for me. Um, because all of us, but I feel like I have so many thoughts, competing thoughts, negative thoughts, things that like just are not serving me at all. And I would really believe them, which has just changed recently. And now I'm just like, oh, this is just what happens to your brain, And this is just what happens to someone who's never seen someone like you with your personality lead a company. Oh, okay, this is what happens. And I'm just kind of letting everything be more neutral these days, which has been really lovely. And I like to have fun. I want to laugh and I want to play. And so a lot of things at work, I do approach with a lot of ease. With a lot of like, all right, let's take it easy. Let's laugh. We can be mad at each other. Things, it doesn't have to be all hunky dory, but let's like tone it down a notch a little. And that approach has really served me well too.
Yeah. I appreciate what you said about just the fact that it's your first time in a role of this magnitude and still navigating what that looks like.
Yeah.
What are some things that have helped either prepare you for where you are now, or since being in the role, you're like, okay, these are the skills that I'm going to strengthen and this is how I do it?
Yeah, let's see. I'm a really fast decision maker. And I know you mentioned that like there's something intuitive about what I say. I do have this intuition. And while it's not seen, as valid in business, not that it should or shouldn't. Actually, it should. I shouldn't say it shouldn't. I believe that it should. And so there's something about having a really sound gut reaction to things that I brought with me early to this role. And so the decisiveness in the face of complete uncertainty and being okay with that being wrong, but knowing that a decision is necessary kind of all the time. And so you pick that path and let's move through that. So I think that's probably the number one most like natural skill set that's helped me for sure. And then on the flip side of that, because I've had a lot of varied career experiences with a lot of kind of tough moments, a lot of tougher managers kind of stuff and not necessarily finding my right fit a lot of times, I knew that if I ever got this opportunity, I was going to be the leader that I always wanted. And again, it's not about perfection. It's not about getting it right, but I was damn near going to try. And so I did like fall in love with leadership and managing and having this conversation. And how do you have a one-on-one? And is this the right performance review? And all of that. And again, perfection is not the goal for me anymore. But to really be intentional about those like human relationships does come very natural to me as well. And then with that kind of on the same page is like a culture or an environment. And so like, I mean, I know we all have examples of like corporate environments. I think it's a joke, I think it's a joke how, and again, some of this is necessary and natural. And I probably steward a lot of negative aspects of this for sure. But the hierarchy and the like lack of transparency that comes with that, or like the fronting and the faking that you have to do and the behind the back and the sending the email for the email, like all that stuff, I just want to laugh because it's like, no. And so that's what's hard as Starface scales. Because, and especially as a fully remote company, there is probably more process than my soul, really likes. And there probably is a lot protocol and prep for this. And, when stuff comes to me, people have thought about it tremendously, And so it is happening. But wherever I can see it and like cut through that, like, I just want to. And so I have an inclination to do that kind of stuff.
But I would love to go back to what you just shared, especially with those two skills that you really highlighted there, decision making as well as leadership. How do you combat decision fatigue? Because I'm sure you make a million decisions in a day.
I love building teams and hiring people. And again, everyone knows more about this industry than I do. And so I'm not really on people's stuff like that. So there's a lot of delegating, and at this point there are so many smart people that are doing things and making decisions. So that helps. And kind of like the intention and the boundaries. Like I know on any given week what my most important decisions are that I can control. Of course, all kinds of things come up. So I like at least give that kind of stuff a little bit of thought. And it can just be like, all right, Noah's got a math test. He hasn't studied and this and this. Do I care how he feels about this math test? Or like he's got his first basketball. Like, should I, even small stuff like that. Okay. Or someone's on my team is pissed at me for this conversation that I had. I probably want to show up extra thoughtful on this next conversation. So there is a lot of like, where do I need to lean in a little more? But I'm still fatigued. I'm fatigued about a lot of. I wish I was one of those who can like eat the same thing for lunch every day or wear the same outfit. No, like I love variety and change too. Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
Very honest.
Do you have
answer.
decision fatigue?
I do get decision fatigue, but I am somebody who can do the same thing over and over.
Oh.
Like I can eat the same thing for a few weeks and just not care.
Amazing.
I feel like every outfit I wear is a variation of the same.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Yeah.
But maybe just like a slightly different color or
Different shoe
different shade.
yeah.
Right. So yeah,
Cool.
but I do still feel like I have quite a bit of decision fatigue, even with trying to hack my life in that way. And who knows, maybe I'm only okay with those things as a coping mechanism. I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
Probably. So earlier you mentioned something that is incredible that I want to also make sure that we highlight and like really shout out. You talked about revenue for Starface starting around 5 million when you came on. Now around 90 million. That's
so crazy.
Incredible.
Thanks.
How does it feel?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feels awesome. I'm so proud.
Yeah.
I like me and our head of finance, Dan, like once we became profitable too, we're like, yes, like we did the sickest thing. I mean, it's Proud as hell, hands down. Yeah.
And the company was founded in 2019,
Yeah.
right? It's only
Yes.
5-6 years old.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And to think about what we're doing too, like we're just, putting stickers on people's faces and that sort of thing. It's like, wow. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of money. It's a tremendous amount of success. Because I have this desire to like change the world, like help us all feel better on a day-to-day basis. That was also really interesting to me. Like to take something that people feel horrible about and switch it up. I had no idea. Like when Brian and Julie were talking to me about that, I'm like, what are you talking about? Yes, I've never heard of anything like that. And now we really do get people writing in, like high school kids being like, you changed my life. You changed how I feel. And that I just love that. So couple that with the like financial success, you do feel really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of shifts some of the narratives that we have around skin, how we feel about skin on its head, where it's like if we have a blemish, we feel like we need to hide it. We need to have this image of perfection, and it gives people permission to play with it.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah.
What were some of the factors that were the biggest drivers of that growth?
A lot of things. Let's see. I think that we had this mindset of like, be where pimples are. So there's like this ubiquity to our retail strategy where we are in Target and Walmart and CVS and Walgreens. So we're at your everyday, like pick up a necessity location, which is amazing place to be. We're also really fun, especially at that time when we launched, like a fun item to pick up in an otherwise kind of drab aisle, too, which is like helped for sure. And then we learned so much. So we just launched our Star Balm in August, and so we're launching new stuff too. And so we started obviously with the yellow hydrocolloid. But then we've been adding ingredients and colors. Like we're just kind of playing and like testing and learning too, which has bred a culture of, innovation to sound ridiculous, but kind of just like, let's try that out. Let's see if that works. And I feel like that and learning from that quickly has helped for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Experimentation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you also found yourself needing to increase your risk tolerance, or were you already someone who was pretty comfortable with risk?
That's a really good question. In my most clear moment, I don't feel that there is a wrong answer or there is a mistake, even if it looks like that at the time. I believe that things come around for the better, I think, in my heart. Which helps.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. I have said on the podcast before, like, similarly about not being afraid of right or wrong answers, because something is rarely wrong. It just might be a detour. It might take longer. It might be an opportunity to problem solve. But very often things are not like wrong per se.
I totally right. And you've taken a lot of risks. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just took a long time to get there.
Yeah, I know.
Probably could have been further ahead if I took some sooner.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you think about goals, from the perspective of leading goals for a company as well as your personal goals, are those two things connected? Do you follow kind of the same process for setting and refining goals? Do they intersect? Do they have nothing to do with one another?
My gut is saying that they have nothing to do with each other, but I don't think that's right. So my husband and I will do like an annual strategy session or something that we've done forever. And we would sit at a coffee shop and we would be like, all right, what are the pillars of our life that we care about? Our marriage, before we had kids even, like travel, get our money right, like all of this stuff. And we would really check in on that. And me and my team do that at Starface like regularly for sure. So there's something there about like a reflection, a like, where's the gap kind of process for sure. But I'm learning, and I could be wrong, but at Starface, sometimes simpler is better than maybe what I do in my personal life, even though I'm trying to bring more simplicity there too. But it's really like, because it is simple, like here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to serve our customers in this amount of ways, in this new ways. we're trying to keep this culture as special as we possibly can. Again, it's not perfect, but just keep that in mind when you're making decisions. It's like kind of simple in that way. And then in my personal life, I'm really working on bigger. I mean, I think we all are, I hope, but and I should probably bring this back to Starface now that I'm saying this out loud, but like a little bit of a boundless kind of attitude, which is new. Yeah.
What does a boundless attitude look like for you?
Oh my gosh. It's like I'm even scared to say. No, I'll say. Because I know I just like posted this yesterday. I'm having so much fun on Instagram, by the way, with my 1,000 followers.
We're gonna have some more.
Yes. I'll take something like Instagram, which really stresses me out, because I didn't realize how much I cared about what other people think about me, and how much I cared about the stories that they're saying about me. And again, like I had a transformational year last year, clearly, but it's like, of course I care, but I don't care as much. And like, sometimes I'll write like, how stupid would you be, Cara, if you let this person's opinion of you dictate anything about your life, like anything? Imagine that. And it was like a light bulb. I was like, oh, you think this? I can't care about that. Which was, for some reason, was revolutionary for me. It's ridiculous. But travel. I want us all to be more connected than we are. Things that are happening on this side of the world are connected, in my opinion, to things that are happening on that side of the world. And I want us to see that. And so I want to travel because it helps me see that. It helps me and my family feel that way. But since I had kids, I would just go to the beach or to the resort or somewhere close. And obviously, like, all of this is first world problems. My whole life is a first world problem. But like, there's more. And so that's kind of a small example. And so is posting on Instagram, where it's like, I have something to say and I'm kind of having fun with it, which again is like my barometer. So like, instead of nitpicking, which I do, just go for it a little. So it's like, I'm going back and forth on when I think about big and small, but I think it's things that I've known that I've shied away from for some reason that I'm just starting to confront, maybe.
I actually think what you said about caring about what other people think was really profound, because I think a lot of advice that we get about that is very overly simplistic, like, oh, don't care. But nobody doesn't care.
On.
It's not about not caring, because we can't necessarily control if our brain cares or not.
Love that.
But we can not let that dictate every move we make.
Facts. Yes. And even that, like, I just sit with that. You know what I mean? Like, yes. And I think now that you're saying that out loud, I think I did. I was like, oh, I don't care. Just don't care. Start not to care. And you're like, no, you care. We want to care. We want people, we want to feel seen, all of that stuff. But you're right. Like, how that determines your next action or your next thought or your next word, that's what you can control for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm learning to do the same thing, where I'll have those moments where I realize I care or I'm being perceived. And now I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with this information?
I know.
Usually nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Usually nothing.
Which reminds me, okay, maybe then it's not that important. If I can't or don't want to do anything with that information, then I can start to let it go.
I love it.
Let it wash away.
I know. I feel like SZA said something like, she doesn't want to be perceived. And when she said that, I was like, what are you talking about? And now all of a sudden I'm like, I get that. Don't perceive, but you can't control. You do. You just want to exist and be you without other people's putting you in a box or like making some judgment about you. And I remember I mentioned that to my husband. Comes from a long family of like ministers and pastors. And I mentioned that to his father. Like, oh, why do we always have to judge? And he was like, oh, it's natural, And I'm just like, I guess it is. And I also thought that I didn't judge other people because I'm a fairly open-minded person. Then I was like, oh, girl, no, you're always judging someone else, And like, even just seeing that, I was just like, oh, this is what it looks like. This is why you're scared. Like, and just being more mindful of it has helped, actually. Mm-hmm. To your point, it's just a reaction. It's just a brain reaction.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like some of my biggest fears around being perceived have been around being pedestalized. Like
Ooh.
when people want answers for things or
Mm.
like, I want to be like you or whatever. I recognize that that's a compliment, but then also there's part of me that's like, that's terrifying.
Yeah, yes.
Don't,
Dude,
because then if I get a little too human
yes.
and then, disappoint people or it becomes a thing, that's when like being perceived feels
Beautiful.
really
Yeah, like a
scary.
lot of pressure to have to like, yeah, I know. I feel that too for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could imagine too,
Yeah.
especially with a role like yours that comes into play.
Yeah. But you mess up
Mhm.
and then you move forward. So
Yeah.
it's almost like, you know, flaws and all kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of your Instagram, you had a post on Instagram that you posted back in December that I really loved. You called it your ins and outs, like all mashed into one. There's actually a few that I would love to share with the audience. No, they're so, so good. I don't have all of them written down, but there were a few that I like really, really loved and resonated, which were opposites both being true, never painting my nails again, but still looking fly. Like we were just talking about, posting and running away so I don't get hype or depressed about 3 likes, loving my life despite whatever BS is going on, not blaming anyone or anything anymore, not obsessing over astrology, even though Pluto is in Aquarius for 20 years, so watch me cook. Big money, ignoring clickbait headlines, choosing the positive story because it's all made up anyway.
Oh gosh.
Those were
Thank
so
you.
good. Can we talk about those?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
what kind of brought you to that point of like, this is where I'm at?
Um, I remember watching people do their in and outs, for years, especially being at Starface, where now I'm like around so many like cool people, but literally, editors and like fashion people. And I'm just like, I love how you guys are like putting your takes out there. So for a couple of years, I've been wanting to do this and not doing it. And so I almost didn't do it this year again. And then all of a sudden it hit me like literally a light bulb. I was like, this is what you want to say. Like I was trying to fit into some other mold. And quite frankly, those are my personal lessons for the year. And like we talked about, I'm actually not doing great on all of those. Like I'm very much still reading 3 horoscopes a day. Every time I post, I'm obsessed with people's reaction to it. I cannot break away. I have to delete the app, but then I read like, and it's mostly really beautiful. And I'm just like, oh, this is a high. Like feeling like you're impacting someone, it's insane. But then I really, again, back to the neutrality, I'm really trying to like let that just be a data point. And my biggest one is the two, like are the nails and the opposite. Like the opposite, I think that's my hope for us, where any number of things that have happened and are going to keep happening, we must label them in our brain as good or bad and this and that. I know we talked a lot about wanting to control, and it's very natural. But the truth is, they are neither of those things, because things come around and offshoots happen and people get inspired by this horrible thing that ends up changing a whole community, or this person got put in a position of power and it made someone else like really inspired to step up, and 10 years later, like I play the long game now more than I realized. And I hope that for all of us too, because I have so many examples, even in my person. Like we were talking about creative versus business. Like we are so many things. The world and all of this is bigger than we try to put into our little brains. And so I think that's very freeing to think that way. Yeah, pause there, but I could talk about any of them.
Yeah. It actually reminds me of what we were saying right before we started recording when we were talking about astrology and like both maybe not doing as great of a job, like taking a step back from it, calling it a meaning making system. And I do think that the ways that we sometimes tend to label things as like good, bad, right, wrong is another meaning making system, just our brains trying to make sense of it all.
Exactly.
but some things just don't make sense, and they just won't, no matter what label we put
Facts.
on it.
I know they just don't, and you and us trying to make sense of them is almost like a waste of time. I feel like, like go cook a meal or go for a run or go to just do almost anything else. And at first, and my husband sometimes will be like, "Oh, that's like a form of denial." I don't see it that way. It's a way of moving forward and through that I think has helped me for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And in some ways, a way to reclaim energy.
Oof.
Like, I don't know. I know a few years ago, I was in a different space where I was just so focused on things that I believed to be right and values that I had. And largely my values are still the same. But like, how much energy did I expend wanting other people to feel the same way when they may not? How much energy did I spend reacting to things? It just is
Oh
like,
my gosh, Les, I resonate with that so much. I still do that a lot. And I think about that, and that is when a meditation will help me. Because I'll be like, you're trying to impose your value system on someone else or something else. You can't do that. And it's a waste of your time. And I would get so riled up. I do get so riled up. And, and I'm just like, yeah, exactly. There's power in not doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things that we were also talking about off air, you have a birthday coming up, or maybe it'll probably be like your birthday right around the time this episode comes
cute.
up. And you're entering your 40s.
I am.
Is there anything that you're excited about with this new decade?
40, so crazy. Everything. I think I feel, all the things we've been talking about today are, yes, me my whole life, but also recent, like it's solidifying now for me. And so I feel very inspired and bold. Like I almost can't hold it in. Like it's bursting out how much I want to give and share. And I'm excited to go so in my 40s, kind of relentlessly and embarrassingly, and just like with a lot of fun and joy behind it, which again has always been me. But we've talked about a lot of like spending the mental energy. I would also, like I have proclivities to get a little sad, a little more down, a little more like second guessy. And so I'm a little bit freer. Of course, those things still plague me, but there's a lighter energy to that now as I enter my 40s, which I'm just really grateful for.
Oh, that is awesome.
Thanks.
I've even felt that way a little bit in my 30s when I think about my 20-something self and just how anxious I was over everything, where it's like, what am I doing with my life? I have to get everything right. I have to know what I'm doing. Everyone else knows what they're doing and I'm not. And then it's like you get older and you realize nobody knows what they're doing. And there is such a freedom in that. And it just is, it's why I like talking about it, because I do have a lot of listeners in their 20s. We do tend to have an audience that is like kind of Gen Z entering, maybe their first jobs, entering adulthood. And that is such a scary time. And it can feel like all of this pressure to, as I like to say, cram a lifetime's worth of achievements into that one decade. Because I feel like that's what people in their 20s like to do. Everybody thinks that there's a cliff they jump off when they turn 30.
Yeah,
and if they didn't do something before 30, like it doesn't count or something. And I just like to remind everybody that there's so much life ahead.
Oh my gosh.
So much freedom and goodness.
Yes, exactly. I love that. I'm like really, one of my like soft intentions is to build friends in other decades. And so I have like friends that are just turning 30 and friends that are turning 50. And you're exactly right. Like there's so much life on all of these ends of the spectrum. And it's so energizing. And gosh, if I was 20s again, I probably would take more risks. Like it's so funny to hear you say people are like want to cram all this in. I feel like it doesn't even matter. And that's, hindsight 2020, who knows? But you're just supposed to be, right? And have fun and make some friends and make some mistakes. Yeah.
I feel the same way. I would have taken more risks too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And similarly, I've actually been over the past year or so, I did have a post on TikTok kind of go viral about this because I wanted to follow more creators who were older. Like I was really looking to follow women in their like late 40s, early 50s, because I just felt like my feed was just all people in their 20s and 30s. And I was just like, honestly, I'm so sick of us.
I need a break.
I've been on the internet with people my age since MySpace. I've heard everything that everybody's going to say. Like, I want some like Gen X energy.
Love it.
You know, just to spruce things up a little bit. And I've been following just like some older ladies who are so
How's
cool.
that been?
It's been awesome. It's giving great perspective. They have amazing style. They're doing all these things, you know, and getting to hear more about just like that next stage of life in a way that's not scary, but is super honest, has actually been really refreshing and has created a lot of peace.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know. I feel the same way. Yeah, please slide in my DMs with people. I love it. I'm really like Julia Louis-Dreyfus. You know, she's just doing that podcast, Wiser Than Me, with all of these icons in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And it's just like, even that's fun to listen to. I know we were talking about before we started recording about the whole aging woman and you know, and all of that. And again, I think everything's changing, and I think that's going to change too. But it is like, imagine if we had a whole group of people here across the decades just having this conversation, like how rich, and you're right, like peaceful, like leveling would that feel? It'd be awesome.
Yeah. And fun
as hell.
Joyful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of kind of tying it back to Starface, because I feel like something that you all do really well is you do have this kind of message permeating of joy that in the beauty space, beauty can sometimes feel very serious. It can feel very stuffy. Talking about aging and skincare and like aging for women, or even thinking about like hair, and like for us as Black women, conversations about hair get very serious very fast. It's just as like there's so little room for play and fun when it comes to beauty. And I do really love that you all are bringing that to the space, because I think it's very needed.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I don't think I even noticed that, but now that you're saying that, you're right. You know, like I know that, especially acne specifically where we live, it was very, you didn't feel great about having to get a prescription from your dermatologist, and you definitely didn't want to like share it with your friends and that. So that's definitely what Julie and Brian were thinking when they launched it. Absolutely. But even like now, you know, several years later, I guess there's not a lot of play. Maybe people go to makeup and other things in beauty. We're very unserious. Yeah, we are. And yes, as internally as people, we are kind of a lighthearted bunch, if I'm honest with you, for sure. But we think about that a lot, and the language that we use and the imagery. We like to play and have fun. And it can be a challenge, you know, when there are harder things going on around you, maintaining that. But we keep coming back to, you know, we're here to uplift. Like that's our role. We're here to have some fun and just to play. And it does bring a lot of levity and lightness to the day-to-day, for sure.
Which I think we all need more of.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if it's just like healthy distraction from time to time.
Exactly. Even if it's a smiley face on your feed.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Smiley face on your
on your face. Yeah, exactly.
Any of it. Cara, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything that you are excited about for this year? Also, anything coming up with Starface that we should be on the lookout for?
Yes, I love it. So Starface has a lot coming up. And really soon, probably about the time of this, airing, we are launching more, and so just stay tuned for like bigger dreams from Starface, bigger bets. I'm so excited about it. Even the Star Bomb, if you haven't tried it, like it's so luxurious and playful and fun. So there's a lot more flavors too, which is really sweet. And for me, in my personal life, I just am spreading the good vibes, wherever I can.
Yeah, we need as many of those as we can get. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Oh my gosh, this was so good. Thank you.
Thanks.